Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here on the Voice of College Football channel. We are here tonight to celebrate a great season for the Pac-12 with our first annual Pac-12 Awards. We've got some regular awards that you guys are going to be used to, and as well as some very, very special Pac-12 awards. And in fact, awards presented to the Pac-12 by Pac-12 awards. Sorry, I think somebody's echoing. Presented to the Pac-12 by every other conference. So we're excited. Now we want to engage with you guys tonight in a chat. As always, a couple of rules just to keep everything on the up and up and to keep it a good experience for everybody. Remember, it's about everybody's experience, not your own. As always, be constructive, interesting, and add value. Don't be a jerk, and keep it related to the Pac. We're here on a Pac-12 chat show tonight. We're not on a other conferences chat show. As always, of course, no personal attacks on guests, callers, or chatters. You'll just be gone instantly from the chat if you do that. No incessant, worthless, or negative trolling. Absolutely no derogatory, discriminatory nonsense. And do not harass, whine, or challenge the moderator team. So because it's a good experience for everybody, if you're messing with that, we will just take your account out of the chat tonight and you'll be done. So let's not have to worry about that because it's the awards night, which is going to be a lot of fun. Now, before we get to the awards, Rick has some transfer portal updates because it's been quite a transfer portal season.
Hey, good to be back with everybody. Welcome to all our viewers to our first annual award show. And as many of you know, the transfer portal just closed on the 18th last week for players to declare to get into the transfer portal for this first window. Another window will open up from May 1st to May 15th, but many players that are in the portal still have yet to declare or commit where they're going to go. You'll see that happening shortly, and we'll as we move into February, we'll have a more up-to-date numbers of what happened in this 2023 transfer portal moving into spring ball. But I wanted to just quickly recap 2022 because there was a lot of activity across the country, but keeping it kind of specific to the Pac-12 going into last year. Not many people, including myself, gave the Pac-12 an opportunity to improve, but they did. And a lot of that had to do with the transfer portal. If you take a look at 2022, some big changes with Lincoln Riley going to USC, DeBoer up at Washington. You had Dan Lanning going to Oregon. And three key things each of those schools had was a quarterback transfer, which was huge. Looking at the top 10 teams nationally in the transfer portal for 2022, you had USC, Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, Nebraska, UCLA, South Carolina, and Arkansas. Something key to look at out of those top 10, you had 8 teams that were from the Pac-12, SEC, and the Big Ten. No team in the top 10 was from the ACC. And it can be argued that at the end of the year, if you look at out-of-conference, conference, bowl games, obviously SEC was on top. Big Ten was most likely second, which I presume. And then an argument could be made who was the better conference, Pac-12, Big 12, or the ACC. You can use any metric you'd like, but I would think that the Pac-12 has a good case of being the third best conference last year. When you look at, you had 6 teams finish in the top 25, and you also had 5 teams that finished with double-digit wins. And so part of that is taking a look at what happened with the transfer portal. Again, you take a look at you take a look at Oregon, and you take a look at Washington. They were not in the top 25. The top 10 in the transfer portal for 2022. Oregon was number 24, and UW was number 25. Oregon had 11 transfers, Washington 9. So that kind of highlights how important having a dynamic quarterback is for your team. You take a look at teams like Miami. They finished number 12 in the transfer portal, had a lot of transfers activity with Cristobal. They had 11 transfers, but they didn't have a quarterback that really moved the needle for them offensively. Another key national team to look at, TCU was number 13. They had 14 transfers. So obviously that helped shore up some of the needs and propel them into the national championship game. So real top line, that's kind of looking at recapping 2022. As we move into 2023, we'll break it down further, but just want to kind of tease and let you know that we'll have some transfer portal information on a weekly basis and kind of recap 2022 and preview 2023 as we move on. Tim, what are your thoughts as respect to the transfer portal? Some highlights as a respect, with respect to the Pac-12. I think you're on mute.
The biggest impact that Pac-12, the transfer portal had on the Pac-12 was just the offensive firepower that was added, like you kind of touched on briefly there last year. You have guys like Penix at Washington. You have Caleb at USC. There's an influx of all these great quarterbacks that came in, but also on top of that, you had a bunch of receivers and running backs. USC brought down Dye and Addison. UCLA had guys like Jake Bobo come in and make instant impacts, changing offenses that may have been good offenses into elite offenses. So we saw with, just as big an impact as the transfer portal was the coaching staffs, but those coaching staffs would have been limited without the just firepower that was spread out throughout the country, and especially here in the Pac-12 when it came to the offense side of the ball. I'm hoping that the trend this year is going to be some more defensive guys coming in to the league. We know that the Pac-12 West Coast football doesn't home grow those 6'3", 325-pound nose tackles, and I'm hoping it looks like that's actually starting to work its way into the defensive side of the ball this year in the transfer portal. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, so like on the transfer portal generally, it's interesting to me, like the ranking stuff, right? Or the thing that I find interesting about it is I think in the same way that like a class ranking, recruiting ranking for generally they're right in terms of who has the best class, but like in the same way that a general class ranking isn't taking into account like positional depth or team need or things like that. I think the transfer portal not only does that, right, like when they're ranking, right, and they're ranking top transfer portals, but what I think a lot of the like recruiting sites that are doing this are not focusing on, probably because it's a lot more work for them, is the outflow of talent on some of these teams versus the inflow of talent, right? And like what the actual net gain of your team is through the transfer portal. Because for a lot of schools, like I'll say for UCLA, for instance, like our transfer portal inflow is like, we don't have a large outflow. And it's not been anyone that we were like especially sad about losing. Granted, better teams are going to have like more talent, and more of that talent is probably going to leave because it wants to play faster. And like if they're in a situation where they came in, I think you see some of that at Oregon, and you see some of that at SC with like your stacked wide receiver room. And you bring in Singer and then a couple of guys that could play at a lot of places, instead of being the fifth guy or fourth guy at SC when they're really, really good, they go start somewhere else. But yeah, no, like the inflow versus outflow thing is something that I'd be interested in. And then I kind of go back and forth on this, but I don't know. Like it's like Georgia, for example, and Ohio State, and I think maybe Michigan, like they're using it, right? But they're using it less, right? And obviously because they have less holes to fill. So I think it's like I think it's a good way to have a stopgap, and especially bring in like talent at certain positions, especially if you don't have a guy, or if you're a new coach and you want to like make an instant change where like a rebuild used to take like 3 or 4 years, you can do it. You know, we saw like Sonny Dykes and right, like you saw a bunch of guys, Riley, DeBoer, like a bunch of guys that are first year coaches in a new situation. You know, they bring in some dudes and make it happen right away. So I think it's a good stopgap, but I don't know if it leads to being ultra elite on a consistent basis without like the extra, without also doing the high school thing and being like those other ultra elite schools. Now that's not something that everyone necessarily cares about, but if you are one of those schools, I don't know. I think I don't know. You can't, it's harder to rely on.
Well, there's a reason why you don't see, Chris, you're not seeing Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State anywhere in the stratosphere of the transfer portal team rankings. You know, if you actually look at the top 10, 15, the rankings, it's the teams that have new coaches either last year or this year, and they're turning over a roster, and it isn't sustainable. But then again, they haven't had, like, Kirby Smart has been building these classes for how many years now, right? Just turning over these top classes. I think, Rick, that it's a great way to jumpstart the program. It's almost like a defibrillator to popping some life back into a program, and you won't see the Alabamas because they have 5 stars. Why would you transfer somewhere where you're not even going to see the field? A big thing. Someone in the chat said something about Oregon having SEC like linemen. I got news for you. USC got 2 starting linemen from Florida, and that was basically the strength of Florida's team. And USC took 2 of their starters, and they're now going to be playing in the Pac-12. So we are seeing a lot of those big guys come west, and I think eventually, Oregon, USC, Washington's going to want to do what Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are doing by building their high school. The weird one in here, though, is Ole Miss. But if you look at the top 10, the rest of those are all brand new coaches or second-year coaches.
Chris, you had a question. You'd be interested in the outflow and the inflow of talent. And I actually have those numbers. So real quickly, and they kind of tell a story and back up looking at the top 10. But before I get to that, Alabama was in the top 10 for 2022 transfer portal, and they had 5 transfers. But there's the perfect example of basically Nick Saban and the Alabama staff high spotting and getting like the best players to upgrade where they need to fill needs. And because their talent was 4 and 5 star, there's an example of Nick Saban really utilizing getting the best players to come in and address needs. But getting back to outflow and inflow, Chris, if you take a look at the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the SEC, the Pac-10 had 19 players going out on average per team. The Big Ten had 18.3, and the SEC had 20. And incoming, the Pac-10 had a little over 8 players, new players coming in. The Big Ten had just under 7, and the SEC had 8.7. So if you could see that, they're getting rid of, a lot of players that they determined cannot play in the portal, and those players that knew they couldn't play in the portal, they're going looking for playing time and opportunities. It's either you're in the SEC and you're not going to be able to play on a top team. They lead the 3 conferences and players that are outgoing. So that gives you an idea of those coaches are really going through utilizing the transfer portal and motivating those players. Hey, look for another opportunity because we're changing the roster. And that's what the transfer portal allows you to do is roster management, really reshape your roster on a year-to-year basis. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our awards. Tony.
But do we want to talk real quick about the big controversy going on in the Pac this week?
You've been kind of close to that, Tony. What are your thoughts?
So just as an update, and actually just so we start, guys in the chat, tell us what you've heard. You guys just real quick, tell me what you've heard, and I'll fill you in. We just got this evening some pretty good insight into the details. But what are you guys hearing?
I know things are changing daily. I wasn't really on top of it today, but as the news broke, it was determined it was a TV partner that for some amount of time was overpaying, and that number was believed to be $50 million. And that TV partner was not an ESPN or Fox, but rather a distributor. Don't know exactly who that was, and that there was an audit, I think back in 2017, and it was determined that payments were being overpayments were being made, and apparently two Pac-12 executives knew about it, did nothing, and they ultimately were found to be in the wrong and were fired.
So there's a little more to it. And just to give you guys kind of the quick update, and again, this is as of tonight. Basically, so the partner was Comcast, and Comcast was actually an original partner of the Pac-12. And Comcast, the rates that Comcast pays the Pac-12 for the Pac-12 network. So this is not about like Fox and ESPN, the rights. This is about the money that Comcast pays the Pac-12 to put the Pac-12 network on TV sets. And that fee, and this is a little bit of apparently kind of a crooked mess, is based on internal proprietary Comcast numbers that only Comcast actually has access to. So the Pac-12 doesn't actually have access to. And Comcast goes through and computes all this stuff and sends the Pac-12 a report that says, okay, here's our latest numbers on your channel, and here's how much we owe you. And they've done it this has gone on for 10 years, the 10 years of the Pac-12 network agreement. And so this was I think it was in like year 5 or something like that. The Pac-12 was actually really antsy and really ornery because the Pac-12 thought that they were being underpaid by Comcast. They thought that Comcast was not paying enough. Now, bear in mind, Comcast computes these numbers. Comcast sends the check. This was not money billed by the PAC because the PAC doesn't have these numbers. Comcast has these numbers. And apparently, by the way, these numbers are often screwy, and that's why they do audits to figure them out. So the Pac-12 thought they were being underpaid. And then the Pac-12 went to some auditors, people especially do these things, and they said, look into these numbers for us. We think we're being underpaid. And the auditors came back and said, actually, you're being overpaid by about $5 million a year. Now, that's not a huge number. It's not, apparently was not enough to sway bonuses. It wasn't a big number, but it was sort of surprising. And they said, well, we don't think we are. And they apparently dismissed the claim. And under their calculations, they thought they were being underpaid. And this includes the president of the network and the CFO. So they believed under their calculations that they were being underpaid, but it's Comcast internal numbers, so they don't have any say, and they get the check in the little report from Comcast. So this went on, and then during this media negotiations, which have involved all sorts of calculations of stuff and back and forth, Comcast figured out, oh my God, for the last 10 years, we've been overpaying $5 million a year. And so the Pac-12 started looking into this, found out that this actually had been raised. They had known about it, even though they didn't believe it. And they hired a law firm, Cooley, to dig into it. And the law firm found, in fact, that it was raised and it was dismissed. And as a result, the CFO and the president of the Pac-12 networks got fired, understandably. And probably they estimate over the course of the next 2 years, the Pac-12 will repay that to the tune of $25 million a year, in credit, in less money coming from Comcast. So there's no sues, there's no lawsuit, there's no people like this is fraud. People should be in jail. No, I think I wish we'd perp walk Larry Scott for any number of reasons, but this was not a fraudulent thing. It was Comcast calculated wrong for 10 years. Comcast overpaid for 10 years. And at about the midway point, the Pac-12 figured it out. But those two guys didn't believe that was right, and they just dismissed it.
Well,
so
can I just jump in really fast?
Yeah.
Is anyone here really going to feel sorry if a cable company gets screwed on a bill? If anyone's here had cable, we've been getting screwed for 30 years.
Comcast.
Especially Comcast. So I'm glad you ironed us out, Tony, but from day one, when I heard, oh, wait, someone got ripped off. Who? Oh, the cable companies got ripped off? Oh, that's a shame. So, yeah. I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
There are no tears shed for Comcast. Roger Dodger, yes, it's 10 years, not 5. It's $5 million a year for 10 years. It's the whole life of the contract. Basically, Comcast was miscalculating. John Wilner said he thinks that it has to do with they were double counting people based on subscriptions of some kind. So,
counting every single Pac-12 network, since there's 7 of them.
It has something to do with that. If you get the main network and you get all the others, they were counting them as 2 or something like that is what John, every day, John Wilner, you can follow him at Wilner Hotline. He's breaking more and more details on this. And again, guys, the thing is now Big 12 Twitter, I mean, they're running to their QAnon levels of excitement. I think that their simultaneous ejaculations probably set off seismographs when this happened, but it's really not that big a deal. And apparently, and again, if you listen to people, Bob Thompson's talking about this, the miscalculations and the recalculations happen all the time. So much that there's an entire industry of auditors that all they do is look into this stuff. So
I mean, we're talking about less than $5 million, right?
Yeah, per year.
We already pay Cal that every year.
Yeah, exactly. UCLA can be we've already paid it. It went to Cal. Talk to them. Pick it up from Cal. So that's the scoop actually on where that money comes from. So without further ado, guys, shall we get into the Pac-12 awards? Hooray for Hollywood.
And I want to thank, last week, there were a couple people that went ahead and put in some of their choices. I did want to thank, especially Connor Johnson. I don't know if you're out there, but you're always here. You had some really funny ones. So if you guys want to go look at his list, it's on last.
Oh, his list is good.
It's really, really good. And Gumby also put some stuff in there. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I do apologize. But I just thought off the top of my head that I do appreciate you guys took the time to put your own list out there. You guys did a great job.
Gumby is awesome, by the way. We love UC Region Gumby.
Yeah.
All right. Let me fix this one little thing. And I think we are ready to. Is the thing up? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to fix my computer here. I'm missing a screen that I usually have. All right. So without further ado, now here's a little thing, guys. In our Pac-12 awards, these are our special awards. The deal is individuals can only win 1 award per individual. So we have a few that, maybe they're going to win another one in a little bit. So why don't we get started with Offensive Player of the Year? Who is our best offensive player?
The committee nominated, and don't worry if a certain player that won the Heisman Trophy isn't on this list. Maybe he comes up later. The committee nominated Bo Nix of the Oregon Ducks, Michael Penix of the Washington Huskies, and Zach Charbonnet of the UCLA Bruins. And the winner of the Offensive Player of the Year award by the Pac-12 Live Chat Show is Michael Penix of the Washington Huskies.
Oh, congratulations, Michael Penix, Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, it just shows you sometimes you just need to breathe, new life, a new environment in life, right? Get out of a different place and move somewhere else. He hooked up again with his old OC Caleb DeBoer, who was at Washington, and led the Pac-12 in passing. And it was an amazing show they put up through the air.
And guys, Gumby has just pointed out something. We missed an award. We should have also had Offensive Player of the Year.
Penix had a great year. Washington didn't get a lot of the hype. They had the most wins in the Pac-12. They won their bowl game, went down to Texas. Not an easy thing to do. And congratulations to Michael Penix. Looking forward to seeing what he does in 2023. A lot of the publications, a lot of the media has UW as a serious Pac-12, champion next year, or at least in the final championship game. So it's going to be interesting to watch Washington in 2023.
All right,
it's great. It's crazy a guy like that's coming back. But moving on to the next one.
No surprise that our next one, Defensive Player of the Year.
That's you, Rick?
That's me. Oh, wow. And our Pac-12 live chat show nominees for the Defensive Player of the Year 2022, Clark Phillips III, University of Utah. Tuli Tuipulotu from University of Southern California. And last, Deion Henley from Washington State. And the committee, those are our three nominees. And the winner is Tuli from USC.
Woohoo! Fight on Thule, guys. That was a good pick.
Yeah, he had a serious chance to win some Bednarik. I mean, he was looking at National Bednarik Award, big time defensive player for USC, led Power 5 teams in sacks and tackles for loss this year. That includes everybody in the Power 5. Deion Henley was awesome up there at Washington State. I believe he led the league in tackles. I think that's why he was under consideration. And then everybody in the Pac-12 knows about the cover skills of Clark Phillips III. The guy's amazing. But in the end, we just felt the biggest disruptor on there was Tuli Tuipulotu.
I might need Connor to call in later and complain about some Beaver defensive backs not being in there, or someone on like one of the best defenses in the league not having someone nominated. But I'll leave that up to him to fight that fight.
Well, sometimes those great defenses are a team defense and not individual players.
I think the sum of the parts is greater than whatever. I messed up that phrase, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's their secondary was insane. Just ask Caleb Williams.
Let's be honest. Tuli won because he basically was like three guys on defense because USC didn't play any defense. So Tuli covered three positions, including his own.
He really did. All right. What about Freshman Player of the Year?
Freshman Player of the Year. The Pac-12 live chat shows nominees for the Freshman Player of the Year goes to, let's see, first nominee was Jaden Ott, running back from University of California. T-Mac, wide receiver, University of Arizona. And Damian Martinez, running back, Oregon State University. And the winner is Damian Martinez, running back, Oregon State. Had 982 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, 7 TDs. He also had 6 games of rushing for 100 yards or more on a team that built itself on defense and a running game. Damian Martinez was an outstanding freshman. He was basically the running game for Oregon State. He was the bell cow. And as a freshman in this league, that's a very, very tall order, and deservedly so. He's the Freshman Player of the Year.
Yeah, Gumby makes a great point that it would have been Ott, but for the lack of the O-line, and it probably would have been Ott if we were voting in like mid-October.
Yeah.
But as the season wore on, things changed a little bit, and it's tough for Ott to find a hole. But I don't know who's gonna block for him, Gumby. You'll have to tell me later. But they got like 3 really good backs, and I'm not really sure how they're gonna go anywhere. But I mean, I love me some Jaden Ott, and if you would have told me in October he wasn't gonna be the freshman player, like the best offensive freshman player, I'd be like, well, what the hell is gonna happen in the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, he came on strong. Going into the season, I was thinking about that offensive line. You made a good point, Chris. And how they were just dominant last year, and how they're just going to run all over the place. And I thought it would be Deshaun Fenwick, but for some reason, early on, this freshman just emerged, and we're on that 100-yard rushing streak that Rick referred to. And that's really when Rick and I were kind of talking about this specific case. We really narrowed down to just how impressive as a freshman Martinez was, and he's going to be a force to stop next year as well. So congratulations to him.
And on a team where they weren't focusing in on the quarterback. Quarterback play was average at best. And so the running game, you could set up to stop the running game, but extra kudos to Damian Martinez for nearly getting 1,000 yards.
He did.
Yeah, and if you guys remember that, Oregon fans, plug your ears, but Oregon State literally ran, was it 27 straight times? I can't remember how many times they ran the ball and scored 3 times down the stretch of that game.
It was something else.
And it was all basically in the run game. So they'll be a force next year as well with Martinez.
All right, next up, offensive transfer portal player of the year. Who was our best player coming out of the transfer portal?
Now, again, if your favorite Heisman winning quarterback is not nominated, you may have to wait for another award that he comes up in. And he might be nominated for that.
He might be.
The nominees for the offensive transfer player of the year, transfer portal player of the year, are Bo Nix of the Oregon Ducks, Jake Bobo. There's a lot of names. I'm just going to go through them faster. Jake Bobo, Jaden DeLaura, Bucky Irving, and Jacob Cowing. And the winner of the offensive transfer portal player of the year is Bo Nix of the Oregon Ducks.
Excellent.
Way to go, Bo.
Yeah, it's just amazing to think that all these quarterbacks that just kicked ass all year in the Pac-12, they're all coming, except for DTR, they're all coming back. And that bodes well for Pac-12 success next year. And a guy like Bo Nix, healthy. Remember, Oregon struggled down the stretch last year, but a big part of that was the fact that Bo Nix was on one wheel, So it'll be great to see with another year. I am, though, interested to see without Dillingham how that's going to change the offense. But Bo Nix showed me enough and made a believer out of me last year. I was really hard on Bo Nix, thinking, what's he going to do? And he definitely proved me wrong.
Yeah, you said it right, Tim. I mean, the expectations for Bo Nix were really low. And you could see after the first 3 weeks, it wasn't a fluke. This guy was dialed in. Credit Kenny Dillingham and the Oregon coaching staff for coaching him up and game planning and letting Bo be Bo. Outstanding year by Bo Nix. He really was a critical force in Oregon's success. And it's exciting to see him come back. It's going to be great.
All right. What about, let's flip sides of the ball, defensive player of the year, transfer portal.
We couldn't let this go without. So at first we just had so many, because like Rick talked about, we've had so many amazing throughout the country, especially in the Pac-12, just these amazing transfers. So we literally had so many, we had to split it into 2 different categories. And we'd be remiss if we didn't hit on some of these guys on defense that made a huge difference in the league last year. So for the defensive transfer portal player of the year, nominees are Dayan Henley. Oh, you got to help me the first name. What's Latu's first name, Chris?
Latu.
Sorry, I had myself on. I'm sorry, I had myself on mute. No, that's a rough one.
I'm sorry. Any Polynesian people out there, I'm terribly sorry that my ignorance, but I can't. I'm just gonna Anyway, Mr. Latu, who transferred down from Washington to UCLA, Mekhi Blackman for USC from Colorado, Christian Gonzalez, and Jackson Sermon. We got a lot of tacklers. We got Mekhi Blackman, who was only one behind Clark Phillips in interceptions. Latu was just chasing down our defensive player of the year, Tuli Pelotu, in the sack department. So there's some heavy hitters, but in the end, when we talked about it, on defense, you need a tackler and a guy who comes in, and then a transfer guy comes in and leads the league in tackling, and that's Dayan Henley. So congratulations, Dayan Henley, as the defensive transfer portal player of the year.
All right. Moving on as the awards start to get interesting. Our number one top player of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on this one, but we have some nominees we're going to throw out there. So we had Bo Nix from Oregon, Michael Penix from Washington, and Caleb Williams from the University of Southern California. And the winner is Caleb Williams, USC. Not much of a surprise there. All three of these guys had great seasons, but the season that Caleb had this year, the numbers he put up were just insane. So congratulations to Caleb Williams, also your Heisman Trophy winner.
I love it. And a very exciting one, head coach of the year. Now we have 3 nominees, and we've chosen the 2 nominees from the Pac-12 coaches voting, who were a tie, so we put them in. And then we have another coach who we think did a pretty wildly impressive coaching job. So those are Washington with Kalen DeBoer, Oregon State with Jonathan Smith, and the impressive job that you really might be surprised by is Carl Durrell from Colorado. Because think about how hard it would be to take Colorado and the talent they had and the history they have and be that bad. It's pretty impressive. It's an impressive coaching job, and that's why, Carl Durrell, you are nominated, but the winner is Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. Congratulations, Coach Smith. That was a hell of a season, hell of a team, and you deserve Coach of the Year from the Pac-12.
Congrats, Beavs.
Yeah, what Jonathan Smith has done over the past 5, this is a 1-year award because they did, the 10-win season for the Beavs, good, huge bowl win, really one of the most convincing bowl wins the Pac-12 side of the ledger this year, really took it. The whole season, impressive season. But the big thing, again, I know it's a 1-year award, but what Jonathan Smith is building up there in Corvallis is special. He's a Oregon State quarterback. He's an Oregon State guy, and I think unless the NFL calls, I think Connor Johnson is going to be a very happy man for quite a while up there in Corvallis.
And their success by beating Oregon and then beating Florida in the bowl game definitely contributed to landing DJU as their quarterback. So another team to look at, looking forward to in the 2023 with a new quarterback that's multi-talented to add to that tough defensive-minded team with a running game. So look out for the Beavs in 2023.
And who knows,
Go
maybe
Beavs.
some desperate Pac-12 team will also maybe resuscitate Carl Durrell again at some time in the future. He was 1 game from perfection, and he might have got there if they hadn't pulled the plug on him, because he had that 1 game that tripped him up that he actually. No, did he win that?
No, they wanted it right after they fired him, I think.
So he was perfect till they shut him out.
He was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Go ahead. Never mind.
Go ahead.
Just squelch out the UCLA guy, the 3 SC guys over here. Just no.
Hey, we put Carl Durrell in there for you.
Well, yeah. So here's my point: is that Carl Durrell, I think, is pretty evident that he only really needed some more time because, after they fired him, they only won 1 more game without him. It's not like it was a coaching issue, right? You just got to give him a little bit more time to get the right guys in there. Because, as we saw, it's not like they all of a sudden went undefeated because they got a new coach. Yeah. And the fact that Herm Edwards wasn't nominated either I think
Herb should have been on. Herb should
I
have
think
been
it's
nominated.
a real shame. You know, you have former Cal grad, you know, Herm going to coach at ASU, and then you got the former UCLA guy, you know, getting fired at Colorado. It seems like a really big anti-UC bias that Gumby and I are going to be looking into in the offseason.
Okay, I think you should.
Starting an
You should.
investigation.
A Regents Commission.
On. Yeah, moving on.
Hey, Dependent Fanatic, do we seem like we're done yet? I don't think so. I don't think we're done yet.
Well, we got some good awards here.
We got some good awards coming up. So, and by the way, guys, we're talking about Pac-12 tonight. So if you're debating, you know, Stetson Bennett, you're in the wrong show. All right. Out of Conference Game of the Year. Now, this is a special award for which team's game hurt conference prestige the most. So this is presented in honor of our good friend, the real MVP, who absolutely touched himself with some of these games. So, who's got our nominee list?
What did you just say?
So
he touches himself during games?
When these games happened.
He was touching himself.
Yeah, clearly.
Oh my goodness.
Go on.
So the out of conference game of the year.
We love you. We love you, Daryl.
The out of conference game of the year is the game that actually hurt the conference prestige the most during this season. As Tony said, presented by the Durrell Rotary Club of Kentucky. So nominee number one, game number one, was that debacle in Athens. It wasn't Athens. Sorry, it was in Atlanta. Sorry, Georgia 49, Oregon 3. Our second nominee that got a lot of mileage on the voice of college football over the past year was Florida 29, Utah 26. And our third nominee is UCLA 45, Bowling Green 17. This one wasn't exactly for score, obviously, but it was the fact that there were like maybe 8 people in the stands, which was not a good look for the Pac-12.
You counted it higher than I did.
And so the winner is Utah. The Utes laid an egg. Because here's the thing about the Georgia loss. This Georgia team were the national champions. And as we saw what happened to TCU, getting your doors blown off by a team that has a defense that's stout and an offense that a quarterback that was underrated is not some kind of anomaly. So it was hard to give that to Oregon, especially the way Oregon came back. Both Oregon and Utah played strong, but I think that the one that got the most airtime that we heard was this Florida team. It was 8th or 9th in their conference, probably lower towards the end of the year, and they lost on that horrible interception. That Rising, God knows why he threw that ball, but that one is our out of conference game of the year, presented by the real MVP, Rotary Club of Kentucky.
I like it. All right. Our next award, another important one, the 7-on-7 award for absolutely worst, most embarrassing total lack of defense. And I understand this one is presented by the Big 12 collectively with Love's Travel Stops.
Yes, that's correct. So this is a team that literally had a defense that should have had guys wearing bags on their head. Literally that bad. Not tackling, nothing at all. So without further ado, we're going to go with our first nominee is the University of Arizona. Way to go, Arizona. Way to represent. Second, Colorado. Third, Stanford. 4, USC and UCLA. All of these.
Actually, Tim, before you present this, how impressive. This is such an amazing award that 5 of the 12 conference teams had to be nominated.
Well, you know, it's a rare event when you have 5 teams that I believe all these teams were at least 90th or higher in total defense, which is quite an accomplishment. We were talking about how great the Pac-12 was earlier with our 6 teams in the top 25, 5 teams in double digits. UCLA won, you know, that crazy ending away from having half our conference with double-digit wins. And then we got to flip over the rock and look at the underbelly of this thing.
Yeah, hold on. Before you do that, Tim, Mikey G, Oregon, they're trying to steal in this award. Mikey G, I saw some people be tackled by Oregon. I don't want to hear it from you.
Yeah, your secondary did make a good push, Mikey. You guys really did. They did their best to absolutely play no defense on the back end, but they just weren't in this guy's company. What do you think, Chris? How about your Bruins?
Yeah, no. So I mean, I think it's an honor to be nominated. As deeming my Bruins as glorified Arizona. We'll see. We'll see. I don't have the total vote tally. Only you have that. But we'll see if if we can keep our namesake. Talk is Pitt. Keeps trying to troll me in the comment section, talking about UCLA being bad. But what I don't think he understands yet is he can't hurt me any more than I already hurt myself. So yeah, let's see who the winner is. But again, I'm very honored to be on the board.
And I had a Pitt fan today send me 5 pages of angry Twitter messages. 5, like if you were going to print them out, 5 pages. I haven't read them, and I don't really plan to. But like Pitt fans are a little unhinged today. I don't know. Maybe they lost in basketball or something. As a USC alum, I'm not really sure what happens with that round orange thing indoors, but who knows? Anyway, sorry, Tim. I didn't mean to interrupt these 7 on 7 awards.
No, I was just reading the chat, and chat. If this was a season, sorry, this was like a fourth quarter award, I think you would have a stronger case for USC, and it wouldn't be by a mile. These 5 teams here have absolutely rancid defenses, but 2 of them really stick out. I mean, really stick out.
Defenses.
Like next level bad. If you thought USC and UCLA's defenses were bad, go ahead, anyone here, take a peek at the statistics for the University of Arizona and Colorado. And we went back and forth. And although statistically Colorado's defense was worse, we decided that this one goes to the Wildcats of the University of Arizona because they their offense put up so many damn points. They should have won a lot more games than they did, but their defense was an absolute sieve. You could run.
Is this the thing?
Well,
is this the Wildcat thing, the bear down symbol?
I believe so.
Tim,
bear down, Arizona.
How many times did they give up? How many times did they give up over 250 yards rushing on the season? I don't have the statistic, but I guarantee you it's at least half the games. So that is historically bad. Do better, Wildcats.
Tim, Arizona's defense made Cal fans think that the Cal offensive line problems were solved.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a great point, Chris. Yeah.
Which leads us into our next award, kind of very.
Should we move on? Our next award, which is another very, very important, prestigious award, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust award for absolutely most embarrassing, worst lack of offense. And this is a very special award given to us by our longtime friends, the Big Ten West, and their guru, Iowa.
Love it.
So as we were speaking of Cal, the nominees for this award were Cal, Stanford, and Colorado. And although Cal and Stanford put up valiant efforts in winning this award this year, and you might think it is Cal for how much we've trashed them within the last 5 to 10 minutes on that, the winner, in true Iowa fashion, coming in at a whopping 0.2 yards per play more than Iowa on the year, is Colorado.
Oh, go Buffs! Go Buffs! In the chat, they are trying to argue for Stanford. There's some heavy lobbying for Stanford, but the Colorado Buffs, they were one of the worst teams in history.
Did you guys see the quarterback play for Colorado? I'm just gonna leave it right there, and that's all I'm gonna say about Colorado.
He looks like a 9-year-old. He literally looked 9 years old,
and often played like one. Yeah,
and transferred the day they hired Dion. He didn't even wait for Dion to get there and talk about how he was bringing people in. Oh, Colorado, as LBC says. There we go.
Enough said.
Enough said. At least Colorado beat Cal. Stanford, not so much.
And Lamancy and Erica, if you see this ever, we love you. We're just having a little bit of fun.
We do. We love you. Erica's actually one of our favorite people. All right. The Couganit Award for most embarrassing choke or collapse. And this award is presented by the ACC and the Society for the Reestablishment of Clemsoning as a verb.
So, unfortunately, our conference had a lot, and we had to narrow it down. We had some great wins, but we also had
how were we able to narrow this one down so much?
It was rough. It was hours of debate, lots of table pounding. Things were thrown, but in the end, we came up with three very deserving egg on the face losers that cooked it this year. And surprisingly, we have the fact that Washington State is actually one of. Oh, sorry. So I'll start with USC. Anybody that had the pleasure, Trojans, you can shut off the show right now if you want, of watching the last 4 minutes of the Cotton Bowl. Something that looked like a nightmare for any USC fan. How you snatched,
especially because we were on the chat and we knew it was going to happen.
We were calling it right away. We were calling it from the very beginning. We just saw it happening. Anytime you give up a 36-yard kickoff, we were up 15, 4 minutes left. Most teams, they're laughing, Kool-Aid spilling, right? And you give up a 36-yard kick return, and then on the first play from scrimmage, you decide, hey, you know what? We're not going to play defense in the secondary. Why don't you run a slant and take it to the house? Because the one thing you couldn't do, all you had to do, they could have scored a touchdown. For God's sake, at least make them earn it, right?
Did they go to get chicken wings like Georgia? Is that what happened?
It was pretty bad. Oh. And then our not so special teams decided we're going to lateral the ball out of the 1 yard line. And then the one thing you can't do when you're up 15, right? 4 minutes, you look at worst, maybe overtime, right? Probably overtime. No, you're going to lateral out of bounds at the 1 yard line so that you're going to spot them 2 more points. So now they're going for the winning score. Absolute shameful job, USC. Way to coog it. Our second one is the Washington State Cougars. Early in the year, Washington State looked like a force, absolute force. And they had the game in hand against Oregon. And then all of a sudden they start throwing interceptions to linemen, or it was a linebacker. It's who houses it. And they're just giving the ball up, not doing anything. And again, Washington State seizes defeat from the jaws of victory in only a way a Cougar fan could imagine, just like the Trojans enjoyed with Tulane. And then finally, you Ducks, you thought you would get away that easily? No, man. Listen, when a team doesn't even throw the goddamn ball in the fourth quarter, it seemed like, and runs it right down your throat, and your brilliant coach decides to go for it on 23-yard line, and you're
bad.
I don't even understand I didn't know what he was thinking. There's no way you're not going to be on this list. So what was Mikey pretty damn bad.
Mikey G was bummed out about not getting nominated for worst defense. They got nominated for the award.
The Cougan Award they are up for. They didn't throw it at all.
And like there's any doubt who the winner of this one is. And the winner is USC for absolutely crapping the bed in the Cotton Bowl for everyone to enjoy. Well done, Trojans.
You guys, I haven't gone through the statistical analysis, but like who had a higher chance of winning at the end of the game between USC and UCLA? Was it USC? I mean, that had to be like a 98%, 99% chance of winning the Tulane game? Like how bad was
both
our
of them were pretty absurd.
Tony,
they were both. It was embarrassing.
Tulane was too painful. I don't recall anything.
All the teams cooged it, but no one cooged it as hard as the Trojans did in those last.
No one cooged it as hard as it was. An impressive cooging.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll tell you what, though, I took a beating at home watching that game with friends because with 8 minutes left, I think I mentioned this earlier, I cracked open An Arrogant Bastard by Stone. And my friends and family were like, what are you doing? I go, this game's over. This game's over.
You guys know Mikey G is filing a protest here because he's saying that they cooged it twice against both rivals and thinks that should present them for special honorary consideration.
The classic double coog award.
The double coog award.
Double coog with bacon.
You guys, that sounds almost like losing to both rivals. Is that Clemsoning?
Wow.
Well, no,
Recount.
I think Roger just nailed it. Why we won is because USC not only couged it, but we also Clemsoned it as well. So,
Yeah.
so I think that gives it to USC.
I love it. Oh, too funny. All right. And the next award, and this is a big award. This is the Pac-12 award. Now, the Pac-12 award is very special because it is presented for interconference cannibalism and violence against success. And it's presented by the 13-9 Society and the Pac-12 networks.
So the nominees for the award that
Do you want to real quick? Do you want to share a word about our sponsors of this award, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, as we know, the Bruins ruined USC's entire season when they thought they were going to the national championship game by beating USC 13-9 in the Rose Bowl.
And how many national championships has the Pac-12 won since then?
Probably 0.
Well, Oregon's won them all, and that would make it a big. Oh,
And then as we know, the Pac-12 networks, in concert with DirecTV, have managed to to ruin the conference as a whole. So there's some more interconference cannibalism and violence against success. So
and then just when they thought they were done, they came back with just one last little $50 million cut.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Does that mean Comcast will not be a future sponsor of this award?
Yeah, maybe Comcast can sponsor it next year.
Yeah, so the nominees for the season ruining upsets. University of Washington versus ASU. ASU beating a Washington team, which at the time was just coming off a UCLA loss. And the loss didn't really, in the context of what we thought Washington was at the time, wasn't a big of a deal. But, if you look back on the season, it certainly became something more than that. The second game is Cal losing to Colorado, because losing to Colorado is somewhat season ruining if you're the only one that did it. And I'll leave it at that. And the last award goes. The last nominee was UCLA versus Arizona. So you had glorified Arizona versus Arizona, but unfortunately for the Bruins, Arizona won, and the winner is UCLA versus Arizona, because if UCLA had won that game, they would have actually been in a rematch with SC in the conference title game, completely changing the season for the Bruins, giving them their 10th win. Who knows what happens in that rematch, so on and so forth, which would have been a pretty big deal for a UCLA program that, before Chip Kelly's 8-win season last season, had its literally worst 3 years in program history. So, getting to 10 and being in the conference title game would have been a pretty big deal. And that loss sort of was season ruining. And I'll go ahead and jump in front of this in case one of you wants to throw it out. But a classic SC jab is to lowercase the B and uppercase the R in our name. And this one certainly did ruin it for us.
It did. It deserved it. It deserved it.
And Washington, I mean,
congratulations.
It was tight with Washington. They're looking at maybe possibly they win that game. They might have been in the playoffs. So, that changed the trajectory of their season. But it definitely goes to UCLA because that was a painful loss for you guys. And the overall thing, it really hurt. It really.
We're trying not to cook it here as well. Oh, sorry, Tim. I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
All right, ready for the next one? The FCS Win of the Year. So this is a special award for most pathetic FCS game victory. And this game is presented, or this award is presented by our dear friends from the SEC and their special relationship with Waffle House.
Yes, and I am proud to present this award because, as Mikey G, I think, said in the chat last week, that LBC, he's got his shtick on Oregon, on Utah, and then he likes to rub it in the SEC. So we look up to you, SEC, and when it comes to FCS, there's nobody who schedules FCS schools better than the SEC. So I know
they're so good at it.
I know some of our ACC fans,
especially in November.
Yes, I know some of our ACC fans might want to chime in because after last week and Trevor Lawrence's comeback win, stellar win against the San Diego Chargers, because they're going to carry that name, because you could take the Chargers out of San Diego, but you can't take the San Diego out of the Chargers. But you're down 27-0, and Trevor Lawrence with 4 picks in the first half comes back and beats the Chargers. And where does he go? Waffle House. So the nominees for this year's FCS Win of the Year in the Pac-12. Nominee number 1, Oregon, 70. Eastern Washington U, 14. This is following Georgia's 49-3 curb stomping in Atlanta. Way to bounce back, Oregon Ducks. That's a great schedule. Nominee number 2, Utah, 73. Southern Utah, 7. This is following Utah's 29-26 loss at the Swamp. I didn't even know Southern Utah had a school, so awesome job going back-to-back, getting that FCS win after you embarrassed yourselves and the Pac-12 in the Swamp to a soon-to-be 6-7 Florida team. Congrats, Utah. And nominee number 3, UW, 52, Portland, 6, following UW's 45-20 win at home over Kent State. And the winner is UW. True to SEC scheduling form, UW played an FCS team right after playing a G5 team for a back-to-back cupcake, helping the Dogs to a Pac-12 best 11-2 record. Better than 10-4 Utah, better than 10-3 Oregon, better than a 10-3 Oregon State, and better than 11-3 USC. Those surfers from SoCal. So bow down, UW, going back-to-back cupcake for the Waffle House SEC FCS Win of the Year. Congrats.
Yeah, LBC, this is such a prestigious award. Why wasn't USC nominated?
That's a good question because, USC did not qualify because they did not play an FCS school this year, nor have they ever played an FCS school in the 137-year football glorious history, nor will they next year. That's why they were not nominated.
And how many schools in the nation by the time this season is over will have never played an FCS team?
Solamente uno, senor, and that would be USC. Oh, actually, and Notre Dame. Is it Notre Dame?
No, they're blowing it this year.
As of now, right? They still are.
Notre Dame plays an FCS team this year.
But next year, the next season it'll be that way.
It's this season. Yeah, that's the scary part.
Oh, sure, right. Yeah, this year.
We've played
one.
You played one, and you're lucky you didn't get nominated.
Hey, just would have given us a chance to talk about Michigan on the show.
Well, guys, what an exciting season and what a wonderful Pac-12 awards night. Our hearts are full. Our trophies glitter. And we had some pretty special awards. And we want to thank all of you guys who chimed in with suggestions. So it was all you guys. And just to folks in the chat, you guys all, a lot of you deserve your own awards. I mean, I think Connor Johnson needs a special award of some kind for like best fan in the chat. I think Gumby has the best spirit, the most pack-like spirit. You know, we got Mikey G is our favorite duck.
Tony, great job highlighting some of our most loyal and favorite viewers in the chat. We should have come up with an award for that. Sorry,
we should have.
We will for next year. But
Gixxer Squid's our #1 Trojan.
Great point.
Came with you to the game. We love him. Roger Dodger is our biggest Grinch hater. Our biggest advocate for better defense.
That's right.
Best advocate for better defense. Oh, so we got lots of good folks. You know, we've got who do you think, as we look back at the season, who had to be kicked out and timed out the most? Who was our worst fan?
Well, there were a couple of those too, but you know, I don't want to focus on those guys.
Okay, there's a number of them. There's a number of them.
I think we'd have trouble though, picking our favorite fans, because I have to be honest with you
They're
guys.
all our favorite. It's like your children.
Because we had a lot of Pac-12 fans that have joined us here, and a lot of national fans, of football fans that have joined us. And again, if it weren't for you guys, it would just be 4 guys like we probably would do anyway, sit around talking about the Pac-12. But all of you guys have made this year something really special for me and for all of us here on the panel. So we appreciate every time you guys took time out of your busy schedule to come join us. Please, we hope that you guys come next year and bring a friend with you, because this has been a lot of fun, a big learning experience. But I think we built enough. Our goal in the beginning was to get a voice for you guys out there. A lot of you guys stepped up to the mic. A lot of you guys joined us on our shows. A lot of you guys have been commenting. You guys have been blowing us up on Twitter, and we appreciate all the comments. A lot of them funny. A lot of them kind of scary, to be honest. But overall, it's been a lot of fun. And I know I'm speaking for a lot of you guys, but we hope to see all you guys next year as well.
Well, thank you all. All right. Any final thoughts?
Tim said it perfectly. Thank you, everybody who joined in. I think this was an extra special year in the Pac-12 that exceeded expectations. And you'll see what's happening in the transfer portal with 2023 and all the quarterbacks that are coming back and adding DJU. It's going to be an exciting 2023. Looking forward to the offseason, seeing how these rosters get constituted, and move forward to the last year, what's going to be known as the Pac-12, or at least this final iteration. Should be a lot of fun.
Thank you to you guys. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. No, I was going to say thanks, everyone. Thanks for a great year. And thank you, Talk is Pitt. Without your illustrious commenting right now, I would not know that Pitt did something so amazing as winning the Sun Bowl this year. I'm really happy for your program, and I really, really hope that you can build on this. But beware of peaking. I know it's very exciting, and you want to keep talking about your big Sun Bowl win. But let's try to calm down.
Be careful, because Pitt, is due to win a national championship every 50 or 60 years. So they're getting pretty due right now. So be careful.
Could be. I think it's another 15 or 20.
I don't know who I'm going to have to calm down more about how great they're going to be next year. Is Pitt coming off their big Sun Bowl win, or Connor thinking that the Beavs are all of a sudden a playoff team. It's going to be neck and neck.
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired.
Love you, Connor.
All right. We love all you guys. And I want to thank Tim. I want to thank LBC. I want to thank Chris. And we want to thank our friend Mark Rogers for giving us this time on the channel. I want you guys, as we close here, I want you guys to help me do one thing. Everybody, whatever your team is, raise your hand up in your hand signal, whether that's a fight on, whether that's the Wildcat thing, a fork, whatever it is. Give your team's hand signal right now. Guys, This was a hell of a season. It was a lot of fun. It was a blessing for us to be with you. But the new season starts now. So this season is in a few months. Fight on, everybody. Go Bruins. Bear down. Go Buffs. Go Ducks. Bow down. Whatever your phrase is. We hope you have a great offseason. We'll be with you through it. And we look forward to seeing you guys as we move into this season, 2023. Thanks for helping us with a great last season, 2022. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and a happy new year.